66 million years ago, a giant asteroid struck Earth, wiping out the dinosaurs and 75% of the other animals on Earth. Devastating, yeah, but this was millions of years ago. Simplify science. This asteroid were to collide with us today? This is Simplify Science, and here's what would happen. Okay, let's see what kind of asteroid we're dealing with here. Known as the Chicxulub impactor, this asteroid was as wide as 100 to 200 football fields. That's 10 to 20 kilometers, 6.2 to 12.4 miles, wide. And now, it's coming directly toward us. Specifically, the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. If you think you can run away from this thing, yeah, no chance. It's hurtling toward Earth at 20 kilometers per second, 12.4 miles per second. Suddenly, it crashes into the sea, killing everything in the immediate vicinity. But that's not all. A thermal pulse radiates out from the blast site, releasing the energy equivalent of 10 billion nuclear bombs. Cue an enormous shock wave of air that destroys everything within 1,500 kilometers to 932 miles. Plants and animals are shredded. Forests burn to the ground. A magnitude 10 earthquake would crack the Earth open. Quakes would radiate throughout the United States. Massive tsunamis would rise. Mexico City, Florida, and Texas would all feel the effects. I know Texas has talked about seceding, but I don't think this is what they had in mind. Now, although there will still be life on Earth, it might not last much longer. Plumes of dust and sulfur in the atmosphere block the sun. For the next 15 years, it's a cold, dark, awful winter. Only a few of us will make it out alive. But maybe the humans that do survive will be able to rebuild Earth. And funny enough, that massive asteroid that caused all the damage? Well, it might hold the key to a stable new future. And luckily for us, it's not 66 million years ago. It's 2024, and we're Homo sapiens, creatures with really big brains and bright ideas. No offense to the T-Rex, but they definitely weren't getting Wordle in 2. And they definitely weren't tracking the sky for asteroids. But there's a team at NASA doing just that. And if we were able to spot an asteroid ahead of time, could we somehow steer it off course? Well, it is possible to deflect an asteroid from its path. Here are 5 different options we can explore. This is the only deflection option scientists have tested so far. The idea behind this is to violently slam an object into the asteroid, pushing it off its path. NASA tested this technique in 2022 by slamming a spacecraft into Dimorphos. Dimorphos is the moon of a near-Earth asteroid. And thanks to the force of the collision, it's now going faster. So in theory, we could use this option to move an asteroid off course. But there's a bit of a problem. The asteroid we're dealing with is way too big. In order to successfully knock it off course, we'd need multiple kinetic impactors. I'm not liking our chances with this one. Let's see what else we got. Okay, the second option for deflection, think of this like your dog pulling on its leash, taking you down a different path to smell something interesting. Minus the dog and the smell. Here, a spacecraft flies next to an asteroid, changing its path by the force of its gravity. Unfortunately, there's a big problem with this method. For starters, it takes a really long time. And again, it only works on small asteroids, ones that are less than 500 meters in diameter. Yeah, this will be a no-go when it comes to the massive asteroid heading toward Earth. Okay, the third option is something known as a gravity tractor. But instead of herding goats, this Shepard is a spacecraft herding the asteroid out of our way. The spacecraft has an ion engine, which generates an exhaust of accelerated xenon ions. These ions are superpowerful charged particles, and the force of these charged particles deflects the asteroid. But probably not powerful enough to deflect a Chicxulub repeat. Now, if you're imagining zapping the entire asteroid with lasers so it vaporizes, no, that's not it. Unfortunately, it isn't as cool, but it can be effective. The laser is trained on the surface, creating plumes that push the asteroid away. And if we had enough lasers that were powerful enough, this might be a viable method. Finally, for a really big asteroid like the one we're dealing with here, something's got to be done. Now, this would be incredibly dangerous since there's always the possibility of fragments of the asteroid or other space debris falling on Earth. Not to mention, launching nukes, in general, is a super risky endeavor. But let's be real. An emergency like this probably justifies us unlocking the nuclear codes. Scientists tell us that sending a nuke that detonates next to an asteroid 2 months ahead of time could vaporize 99.9% of the asteroid's mass away from Earth. Sounds pretty good to me. Now, all this only works if we spot the asteroid way ahead of time. If, for some reason, we don't, and an asteroid suddenly came out of nowhere, we'd have a mass evacuation. The evacuation zone would be determined based on the size, speed, and angle of the impending impact. Since it's hitting the Yucatan Peninsula, the US, Cuban, and Mexican governments would be busy evacuating people in Mexico, Cuba, and parts of the southern United States. The three governments would have to create alternative arrangements for food and shelter for hundreds of thousands of people, maybe more. Now, mass evacuation doesn't sound like a walk in the park. So is there any upside to having an asteroid land in our backyard? Well, yeah, there are amazing gifts the asteroid can bring us, a whole host of valuable minerals. Due to their highly inconvenient locations in deep space, like in the asteroid belt, these space rocks are extremely difficult to mine. But this would change if an asteroid landed on Earth. Just a single asteroid is estimated to contain a ridiculous amount of gold, 700 quintillion. That's enough zeros so every person on Earth gets $93 billion. And there are other elements that we might be able to extract as well. Cobalt, platinum, nickel. In fact, the pressure with which the asteroid crashes can transform one element into a more valuable one. For instance, at a meteorite crash site in Australia, a rare mineral, rhyodite, was found. It was formed out of zircon as a result of the high pressure and temperature of the impact. And, mining these elements from asteroids could free us from the human rights issues that have been part and parcel of traditional mining. Caliber mining follows ethical mining practices, but not every mining company does. In addition, mining asteroids would be more environmentally friendly, free of the danger of releasing toxins like lead and arsenic into our water. Today, large impact craters in South Africa and Canada are already being mined. They are rich sources of nickel and gold. The devastation from the crash of an asteroid would be horrific. But if it turns out it's unavoidable, that devastation may hold the clue to new resources and new growth. But this is what would happen if the Chicxulub asteroid hit Earth. Now, what would happen if an asteroid hit the Moon and cracked it in half? Well, that sounds like a story for another Simplify Science.